Welcome to Left Africa.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. It is Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. And right now, the entire global sports machine is completely locked in on the World Cup semifinal.
Oh, yeah. It is inescapable right now.
Totally inescapable. I mean, we've got France versus Spain tonight, England playing Argentina tomorrow. And basically, everyone is treating this like the ultimate Hollywood blockbuster.
Because of the farewell tours, right?
Like, exactly. Billions of dollars are being thrown at this farewell tour for Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. The marketing is everywhere. The budgets are just astronomical. And everyone is having that exact same debate about, who is the ultimate greatest of all time.
Which is a fun debate, sure.
It is. But what if I told you that both of these modern legends, right, despite all their cryo chambers and their hyper-optimized diets and sports science, what if I told you they are basically hopelessly chasing a ghost?
A ghost that's been holding this record for over 30 years.
Right. A record set by a guy who was, honestly, officially retired. Just living a quiet life on a small island, until the literal president of his country called him up and basically begged him to return for one last mission.
I mean, it sounds like an action movie script that would just get rejected for being way too unrealistic.
Too cheesy, right? Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. But as we're seeing in the source material we're analyzing today, which is this really fascinating dossier from LeftAfrica, along with this incredibly viral BBC Sport article, that ghost is real. It's Cameroon's Roger Milla.
Yes, Roger Milla.
And he holds a record that might actually be the most untouchable metric in the entire history of global sports. He is the World Cup's oldest goal scorer. And he set that mark back in 1994 at exactly 42 years and 39 days old.
Which is just staggering. And I feel like this massive obsession we currently have with Messi and Ronaldo, it actually masks a literal mathematical impossibility.
How do you mean?
Well, the media right now treats their current runs like they are shattering every conceivable ceiling. And, I mean, to be fair to them, what they are doing in these 2026 group stages is totally absurd.
Unprecedented longevity for the modern era, for sure.
Right. Like, Ronaldo scored against Saudi Arabia recently, making him the second oldest scorer in history at 41 years and 138 days. I mean, the guy has now scored in 6 World Cups. 2006, 2010, 2014, 2018, 2022, and now 2026.
It's wild to even say those years out loud.
It really is. And then you have Messi, who's playing what he insists is his final tournament, right?
Yeah.
And he scores a penalty against Uruguay at 38 years and 363 days old. So he's literally days away from 39.
Yeah, which actually places Messi as the 4th oldest scorer ever.
4th oldest, okay.
And if we look at the official top 5 that's provided in the LeftAfrica dossier, it paints a really clear picture of just how anomalous Roger Milla's record actually is.
Walk us through that top 5.
Sure. So at number 1, obviously, you have Milla for Cameroon at 42 years and 39 days. Number 2 is Ronaldo at 41 years, 138 days. Number 3, and this is a throwback, is Sweden's Gunnar Gren.
Gunnar Gren, okay.
Yeah, he scored at 38 years and 258 days all the way back in 1958.
Wow, 1958.
Then number 4 is Messi. And number 5 is Northern Ireland's Pat Jennings at exactly 39 years old in 1986.
Okay, wait. I have to pause on Pat Jennings for a second.
Yep.
Because I was reading the BBC article, and it mentions a really weird technicality with him.
Oh, the own goal.
Yes. Jennings was a goalkeeper. How on earth does a 39-year-old goalkeeper make the top 5 goal scorers list? Like, did he run all the way up the pitch?
No, it is a completely bizarre statistical quirk. Basically, FIFA technically counts Jennings on this list because he scored an own goal.
Oh, man.
Yeah. The raw data simply tracks the oldest player to put the ball in the back of a net, regardless of which team the net actually belongs to.
That is just a brutal, brutal way to get into the history books.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. But even if we exclude the goalkeeper's bad day at the office, look at the math here. The gap between Milla at number 1 and Gunnar Gren at number 3 is almost 4 full years.
4 years.
Exactly. In professional sports, a 4-year gap at the very top of a historical leaderboard, it isn't just a margin of error, it is a massive chasm.
Right, because normally these records are beaten by, like, days or weeks.
Exactly. It's a chasm that modern sports science still cannot bridge. The dossier breaks down why this record is essentially a statistical fortress.
A statistical fortress, I like that.
Yeah, because to beat Milla, a player doesn't just have to maintain their fitness, right? They must defy 4 massive compounding hurdles.
Okay, what are they?
First, you have to be an elite, world-class attacking threat. at 42 plus years old.
Aye.
Second, you have to play for one of the few nations that actually qualifies for the tournament in the first place.
Oh, right, because your country has to make it.
Exactly. Third, your national team manager has to actually select you to play and put you on the pitch instead of a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
And fourth, you have to actually score a goal against the best defenders on the planet.
Wow. Okay, so even with, teams of physical therapists monitoring a player's sleep down to the minute, the math strongly says no.
It really does.
Like, I look at someone like Kylian Mbappe, who seems like the most likely modern candidate for these types of longevity records, and the timeline just doesn't compute.
Not at all.
He would need to be scoring in the 2042 tournament to beat Milla. Mbappe would be 43 years old by then. And even if Ronaldo somehow decides, you know what, I'm not finished, and he plays in 2030, he would be 45.
Yeah, Father Time remains undefeated. I mean, the sheer physicality required to compete at that level just degrades the human body.
Which obviously forces us to ask the big question here. How on earth did Roger Milla actually do it?
Well, his career path basically defies literally every conventional rule of athletic development.
Right.
The sources split his story into two distinct parts, and this initial setup is crucial to really understanding the miracle of what happened next.
Yeah, so the setup starts all the way back in 1982 in Spain. Milla makes his World Cup debut, and he is already 30 years old.
I mean, he's basically a veteran before he even starts on the global stage.
Exactly. Cameroon is appearing in their first ever World Cup, and they get drawn into this absolutely brutal group with Italy, Poland, and Peru.
Not an easy draw.
Not at all. But incredibly, they go home completely unbeaten. They force draws with Italy, who, by the way, went on to win the entire tournament, and they draw with Peru.
Yeah.
Followed by a 1-0 loss to Poland that basically decides who advances. So they are eliminated, but Milla has announced himself to the globe.
Right.
And then he just officially retires from international football in 1987. He moves to a small island, steps away from the limelight, and the story seems completely over.
Until the calendar flips to 1990. Milla is now 38 years old, and he receives a personal phone call from the president of Cameroon, Paul Biya.
This is the part I find just wild.
Yeah. The president isn't calling to just congratulate him on his retirement. He is personally demanding that Milla return to the national team for the Italian '90 World Cup.
It is the ultimate cinematic cliche happening in real life, like, we need you for one last job.
Exactly that.
But what I really don't understand is the physical reality of that demand. Because you don't just step out of retirement at 38 and outrun 22-year-old elite defenders. How did he actually survive on the pitch, let alone dominate?
Well, he survived because of his strategic deployment.
Meaning what, exactly?
The dossier highlights that Milla wasn't grinding out full 90-minute matches. He wasn't being asked to track back on defense or do that exhausting box-to-box running that really wears down a player's joints.
Oh, so they protected him.
Exactly. Cameroon's tactical setup absorbed the opposing pressure, and Milla was utilized as this highly specialized weapon. He would literally sit on the bench, read the flow of the game, and then come on as an explosive substitute against tired legs for the final 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay, so it was a masterclass in opportunistic brilliance.
Precisely.
And you see that play out flawlessly in that 1990 tournament. I mean, in the opening match, Cameroon is facing the defending champions, Argentina. Led by Diego Maradona, no less.
Yeah, literally the reigning kings of football.
Right. So the score is 0-0. With 22 minutes left, Milla is subbed on. And almost immediately, he tears through the Argentine defense, draws a crucial foul, and that specific play leads to the winning free kick. Cameroon stuns the world with a 1-0 victory.
And that massive upset really just set the tone for their entire campaign.
It really did.
Because next up, against Romania, Milla comes on and scores twice in a 2-1 victory.
2 goals off the bench.
Yeah. And then we reach the round of 16 against Colombia, where he scores 2 more goals.
Yeah.
And the second goal in that match is arguably one of the most famous moments in World Cup history.
Remind me, this is the one with the goalkeeper, right?
Yes. The legendary Colombian goalkeeper René Higuita, who, fun fact, is the same guy who later invented the famous scorpion kick save.
Oh, that's right. I remember that video.
Yeah. So Higuita was known for wandering way outside his penalty box.
Yeah.
And Milla anticipates this. He dispossesses Higuita near midfield and just casually rolls the ball into an empty net to win the game 2-1.
Just incredible spatial awareness. So they advance, but they finally fall in the quarterfinals to England, losing 3-2 after extra time. And honestly, only because of 2 Gary Lineker penalty kicks.
Right. They took England to the absolute limit.
They really did. But Milla walks away with staggering accolades from that tournament. He wins the bronze boot as the third highest scorer with 4 goals, sitting just behind Italy's Schillaci and Czechoslovakia's Skurabi.
Not bad for a 38-year-old retiree.
Right. He becomes the first African player ever named to the World Cup All-Star team, and he led the first African team to ever reach a World Cup quarterfinal.
Which is an incredible legacy on its own. But that brings us to the record-breaking moment 4 years later.
Right, USA 94.
Exactly. Milla is now 42 years old. Now, the Cameroonian team isn't nearly as strong as that 1990 squad, and they end up losing all 3 of their group stage games.
Tough tournament for them.
Yeah. But in their final match, which is a 6-1 loss to Russia, Milla steps onto the pitch as a substitute.
This is the match where Oleg Salenko scored 5 goals, right?
Yes. Salenko set a record of 5 goals in a single match that actually still stands today. But honestly, the bigger historical moment happens in the 46th minute when Milla scores what the BBC article calls a poacher's goal. He is exactly 42 years and 39 days old.
Okay, just to clarify the terminology here for the listener, when they call it a poacher's goal, what does that actually look like? Because it sounds very different from those explosive midfield runs he was making back in 1990.
Oh, it is entirely different. A poacher's goal means he isn't taking the ball at midfield and sprinting past 3 defenders.
Right, he's 42 at this point.
Exactly. A poacher relies entirely on veteran instincts and spatial awareness. It's all about anticipating exactly where a loose ball will drop. You're lurking in the penalty area and capitalizing on a messy rebound or a defensive error.
So it's more mental than physical.
Right. It requires minimal sprinting, but absolute mental sharpness. And that goal was his 5th World Cup goal across 2 tournaments, all scored after his 38th birthday.
It is just an unbelievable athletic timeline. But, as the LeftAfrica dossier points out, Milla's impact wasn't just statistical.
Not at all.
It was deeply cultural. And frankly, how the world has treated that cultural contribution reveals a very troubling dynamic regarding African innovation in sports.
The dossier is quite pointed about this, yes.
Walk me through their argument.
So after Milla scored his goals against Romania in 1990, he celebrated by running over to the corner flag, swaying his hips, and moving his arms in a very specific rhythm.
Right, the dance.
Yeah, you invented the Makossa dance celebration right there on the spot. He later called it his gift to the world.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, it was completely unprecedented in global football at the time.
But if you watch football today, that dance is literally everywhere. I mean, the biggest global superstars, Kylian Mbappe, Samuel Eto'o, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, they all do the corner flag dance.
They do.
But it has become completely genericized. It's just considered a standard football thing now. And Milla has actually talked about this in interviews, right?
He has, yeah.
He expressed a quiet pride that players are still doing it, but also a pretty deep sadness. He explicitly said, nobody says it's Milla's dance anymore.
Which really raises a profound question about origin, about credit, and basically who is allowed to own their historical legacy.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure, go for it.
Because the instinct for a lot of people is to just chalk this up to the nature of pop culture. Like, it reminds me of a viral TikTok dance.
Okay, how so?
Well, some small creator invents a move, right? The algorithm picks it up, it goes viral, and then it gets copied by these massive influencers with millions of followers. And eventually, the original creator is totally erased from the narrative. It's really unfair to the creator, but isn't that just the mechanical reality of how global trends work?
That's a fair comparison, but the sources push us to look deeper. The TikTok analogy highlights the mechanism of virality, sure, but we have to look at the systemic bias driving that mechanism.
The bias.
Right. The dossier argues this isn't just about the natural life cycle of a fun trend. It's about a media ecosystem that intentionally centers Europe and South America while treating African football as completely peripheral.
Ah, I see.
Like when a TikTok algorithm strips context, it's mathematical. But when global broadcast feeds and mainstream media narratives strip the context from African creators, it is cultural erasure.
Okay, I see the distinction you're making. So the erasure of Milla as the author of this dance isn't just an accident of time passing. It's a symptom of a much larger bias that strips African players of their historical weight.
Exactly. The dossier frames it like this. African players are frequently stereotyped in global media as being naturally athletic.
Right, you hear that a lot.
Yeah. The narrative always focuses on their raw physical talent, their speed, their physical exertion. But the intellectual property of the sport, the tactical innovations, the landmark historical achievements, the cultural legacy that is routinely assigned to European and South American institutions.
Wow. So the system absorbs the physical movement of the Makossa dance, but it strips away the intellectual authorship.
That's exactly.
It basically turns a deeply cultural Cameroonian expression into this sanitized, generic celebration that, like, a video game developer can just program into a digital player without ever attributing any historical credit to Roger Milla.
That is the exact dynamic the dossier is highlighting. African creators are basically viewed as providing the raw materials, while the lasting legacy is claimed by the mainstream center.
That's a powerful way to put it.
And what makes this deep dive so timely is that this historical erasure isn't just some academic debate about the 1990s. It is an active, really passionate conversation happening right now across Africa as the 2026 World Cup reaches its climax.
Yeah, that BBC Sport article from July 13th really captures the scale of this current conversation.
It absolutely does.
Because while the Western media is entirely focused on France versus Spain and England versus Argentina, the online discussion in African nations is completely different right now.
What are they talking about?
Well, in Nigeria, the hashtag 2026 was trending with over 200 mentions and X spaces specifically discussing Milla's record, and Roger Milla has been trending in Cameroon throughout this entire semifinal week.
Wow, so it's really resonating.
Oh, absolutely. For these fans, this isn't just a fun piece of sports trivia to throw around at a pub. It is about demanding recognition.
There is a remarkably powerful quote in the sources from Samuel Eto'o, who is now the president of the Cameroon Football Federation.
Oh, yeah? What'd he say?
In an interview he gave in 2025, he addressed this exact dynamic. He said, Roger Milla is not just a Cameroonian legend. He is African football's greatest ambassador. His record says something about us that we were there, we did it first, and we are still waiting for the world to catch up.
Still waiting for the world to catch up. Man, that really reframes the entire Messi and Ronaldo conversation we're having right now.
It really does. It gives a whole new weight.
So for you listening right now, whether you are, commuting to the office, prepping for a meeting, or just insanely curious about how the world works, what is the ultimate takeaway here? How do we apply this insight beyond just knowing the mechanics of a poacher's goal from 1994?
I think the core takeaway from these sources is a masterclass in examining our default histories.
Default histories. Tell me more about that.
Well, in any field, whether you are working in business, science, technology, or the arts, we have to constantly ask who is actually getting the credit for innovation and why.
Right.
Because the dossier lays out the facts very clearly. Africa gave football its oldest goal scorer, it gave the sport its first quarterfinalist from the continent, and it gave the world the iconic corner flag dance.
Yeah.
Yet the global narrative still tends to treat these monumental achievements as curiosities rather than landmarks.
Curiosities rather than landmarks. That is such a crucial distinction.
Exactly. The lesson is to actively question the narratives around who we naturally consider to be the pioneers.
Yeah, we have to look really closely at who is writing the history books, and honestly, more importantly, who they are systematically choosing to leave out.
Exactly right.
Like, when you see a standard being adopted universally, you have to ask yourself where the intellectual property actually originated.
It's about recognizing that brilliance often comes from outside the established centers of power, and ensuring that the authorship of that brilliance isn't just erased by the mainstream machine.
Absolutely. So we started today by looking at Ronaldo and Messi putting up these massive numbers in 2026, only to realize they are chasing a statistical fortress built by a 42-year-old.
Right.
We trace the absolute miracle of Roger Milla's career, from his early retirement to that 1990 presidential phone call, tearing through Maradona's Argentina and utilizing a really brilliant tactical setup to conserve his energy and punish dire defenses.
A true masterclass. Yeah.
And then we broke down the mechanics of his 1994 poacher's goal. Plus, we unpacked the genericization of the Makossa dance, revealing the ongoing fight for African football to claim its intellectual property and take its rightful place in history.
It is a legacy that proves innovation doesn't always look like a hyper-optimized modern athlete sitting in a cryo chamber.
Oh, for sure.
Sometimes it looks like a 38-year-old veteran using pure anticipation and instinct to completely rewrite the rules of the game.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. The LeftAfrica dossier made that incredibly sharp point about African records being treated as mere curiosities rather than structural landmarks.
Right.
So think about your own industry, your workplace, or a field you follow really closely. Are there quiet pioneers in your world whose massive achievements are being treated as novelties simply because they don't fit the traditional mainstream mold of what an innovator is supposed to look like?
It's a great question.
It is a question that completely changes how you view every success story. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning those default histories, keep digging into the sources around you, and we will catch you on the next one.